It was the spring of 2018. It was the most regular morning. Early morning workout, quick shower, swipe of makeup. I ran upstairs, got my kids out of bed, ready for school, double-checked backpacks, kisses goodbye, out the door to the bus. Once everybody had left the house, I went back in, grabbed my stuff, jumped in my big black SUV, and backed out of the garage like I do every single day. For some reason that day, I didn't turn on the radio or call my mom. It was just quiet. And that small sliver of silence was the small sliver my body needed to release the emotions that I had been suppressing for months. Suddenly, I was at the last left turn before I got to the office, when all of the anger and frustration came pouring out of me. And before I knew it, I was slamming my fists on my steering wheel, yelling into the air, "How can this be so hard? How can I want to be so good at something and yet be failing so consistently?" Oh, by outward appearances, things were going great. You couldn't open a newspaper in 2018 and not see element 3 in it. 40 under 40, best and brightest, 5,000. We were number 1 in the book of lists, finally the largest agency in the city. But I knew intuitively I was losing hold of it. Our culture was suffering. One of my most passionate leaders had come to me and said, "Tiffany, I can't be a part of this anymore." Our profitability was suffering in spite of year over year over year over year over year of growth. We had made less and less money, and in 2018, we would end the year at slightly above break even. That year, we would have 50% client retention, and my personal life was a mess. We had 3 young kids, and my marriage was in shambles. I had given this place everything. I had given it my time. I had taken every client call. I was trying to create a culture that people wanted to work at. But instead of building something I was proud of or that company giving me anything in return, it had become a monster that was eating everything I loved. It had eaten my marriage. It had eaten my maternity leaves. It had eaten my vacations. It had eaten my mornings. It had eaten my evenings. It was slowly killing me. Maybe not in the physical sense, but in every way emotionally. I remember thinking, what if I could just get in a car accident? Not because I wanted to die, but because if I could just get hurt, maybe I could just rest. Simultaneous to all of that was this: Tiffany, get your shit together. You've got 1 left turn, a parking lot, and an elevator ride up 11 floors. Those are the only things standing between you and your calendar. So get it together. That day in 2018 was the beginning of the next 5 years. I could no longer ignore 2 facts in my life. Number 1, I was not okay. And number 2, my business was not okay. And it wasn't just that I wanted to change things. I had to. Our rent was $25,000 a month, and my dad had signed a personal guarantee totaling just under $1 million. And if I couldn't figure out how to make that rent payment every single month, I was going to spend the next 10 years figuring out how I was going to not only raise a family, but pay that off. And it wasn't just that I wanted to fix my marriage, I had to. I believe it's Esther Perel that says 100% of us are married more than one time. 50% of us is to the same person. Funny but true, oftentimes. My first marriage was over. My husband and I had to decide if we could pick up the pieces of what it had become and move forward together or not. As I was working on this presentation and thinking about who's going to be in the audience, I think there's 3 groups of people in the room. The first is EOS Crusaders, people like me. You have seen the impact it can have in your life. You have seen the impact it can have in your business. You have put the full weight of your challenges onto it, and it has risen to the challenge, and you were like, I love it. The second group of people, I'm calling you the skeptics. You're like, I've tried it a little bit, hated my implementer. I mean, whatever. Uh, I, you know, uh, you know, somebody on your leadership team stand one of the, whatever it is, but there's sort of this like sliver of irritation with the whole thing, and you're just kind of skeptical about the whole thing. And you're here trying to figure out, are you in or are you out? And the third group, I'm calling you the tire kickers. You're like the people who like coming to smell the roses a little bit, see what's going on. You like follow somebody on LinkedIn that can't shut up about it. You've got a best friend who raves about the impact it's had in their business. And so you're here kicking the tires. I don't actually care where you are in your EOS journey. My confidence monitor just went out and it threw me off. I'm sorry. That's what just happened right there. We're in this together. I don't actually care where you are in the EOS journey. What I know for sure is every single person who paid the money to have a ticket to be in this room, you have a gap in your life of where you are and where you want to be, of what you want it to look like and what your days and where your days actually are. Some of us, this gap is this big, and some of us, this gap is huge. In 2018, the gap was enormous for me. I'm going to walk through with you today what it looks like to fill that gap. The formula I use to totally and completely change and transform my life and my days and the love and intimacy and success in my life. I'm going to birth that to you today, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm telling you, I don't care where you're at on EOS. We all have a gap in our life we're trying to fill. And if you're going to try to fill that gap, you're going to run into something hard. I promise you that. I credit my dad with this quote. Hard is not the end, it's just, there's a lot of times I called my dad. He's an entrepreneur. He has lots of success in business and doing things that are crazy. And I would call him and in so many emotional words say, Dad, I want to quit. This is really hard. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know where to go. I'm out of money. I've got young kids. My husband has a big job. What am I doing? I'm scared. And he would say, Tiffany, people wrongly interpret when things get hard as the end. They say, oh, the path, if it is right, it's supposed to be easy. In my experience, this is not true at all. Do not take, because it's hard, as a sign that it's the end. It is potentially a sign that you need to look at things differently. But just because it's hard, it is not the end. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to talk about vulnerability, we're going to talk about decisions, and we're going to talk about discipline. I'm going to talk about those three things in concept so that we have a shared understanding of what I mean by those words. And then I'm going to take you through some very specific vignettes in my life. These are not for illustrative purposes. This is my actual life. And I'm going to walk you through how this formula completely transformed these different areas. So, concept, application. At the end of each one of these little sections, I'll talk about vulnerability, there will be a section called Try It. It's like a little tool to put in your pocket to say, if I want to try to do this thing, where do I start? So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to start with vulnerability. Some of you are potentially thinking, this is what I would have thought if somebody would have stood in front of me in 2018 and said, oh, vulnerability, that's adorable. That's adorable. But you don't understand, Tiffany, I don't have that luxury. Because when I wake up in the morning, there's 50 emails waiting for me. When I walk into the office in the morning, there's a line of people asking for my decisions. When I walk into meetings, it's my agenda to put together. When I walk into church, I'm an elder. When I walk into my gym, I'm a trainer. Like I'm a leader. I'm executing. I've got decisions to make. I've got things to strategize. I've got agendas to put together. I don't have the luxury of vulnerability, Tiffany. I don't feel my day, I do my day. Okay. My definition of vulnerability is this: the willingness to be exposed to an unknown outcome. The willingness to be exposed to an unknown outcome. And let me give you a word picture to help you understand what I mean. If there is a door standing in front of me, and I have no idea what's behind it, and the door is closed. Whether or not I open the door, does it change what's behind it? It doesn't change. Vulnerability is the courage to say, I'm going to open the damn door. I'm going to open it up and see what's behind it. Some of you are not having success with EOS because you don't have the courage to open the door. You do not have the courage to actually name the issues, because naming the issue is a very scary proposition. So what do we do instead? I'm going to use the example of my relationship with my husband. In the beginning, open the door so wide. Like, hey, babe, how's it going? So good. Telling him all the things. Oh, my word, we've got all this conversation going back and forth. And then, like, one time he makes me mad, hurts my feelings. Open the door, like, a little less far. And then that happens again, and I open the door a little less far. And then that happens again, and I open the door a little less far, and a little less far. And at some point, we don't like what we're seeing on the other side of the door, and so we stop opening the door. And then we get so used to not opening the door that we actually just lose sight of where the handle even is. And we walk by that issue all day long and that door all day long thinking, if I don't know where the handle is, then I won't be able to have to open the door and I won't have to address what's on the other side of it. And then moss grows on it and all this kind of stuff. And it literally goes into this subconscious place in our heads. And we think, oh, I can't see it. It must not be true. It must not be real in my life. And we live on one side of the door. We live without the context of what's actually going on because we don't have the courage to open the door. I'm going to read to you. I promise it will be short. If you are around EOS for a while, you will read a lot of Jim Collins. I've been around EOS for a long time. I've read a lot of Jim Collins. I talk about a lot of Jim Collins-y things. It's like saint patron of Jim Collins in my office. So if you have been around Jim Collins, some of you have heard of the Stockdale paradox. Some of you have not. I'm going to do a quick overview, and then I want to tell you how this, I think, applies to vulnerability. Admiral Jim Stockdale. That's where Stockdale paradox come from. He was a prisoner of war in the Vietnam War. Okay? He was in prison for 8 years, beaten like 20 times. Not a great existence for that dude. It was really hard. Jim Collins learned about him and said, I want to understand, what's it like? How do you make it through when you don't know the outcome? He didn't know the end of the story that he was going to get out. How do you keep hope? What does that look like? And this is the part I don't want to mess up. So Jim Collins says, how on earth did you deal when you didn't know the end of the story? And Stockdale says, I never lost faith in the end of the story. And Jim Collins says, well, who didn't make it out? And Stockdale says this, oh, that's easy. The optimists. They were the ones who said, we're going to be out by Christmas, and Christmas would come and go. We're going to be out by Easter, and Easter would come and go. And then Christmas would come and go, and Easter would come and go. And they died of a broken heart. This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse the faith that you will prevail with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, no matter what they might be. So when we talk about the Stockdale paradox, we talk a lot about having the courage to face the brutal facts, open the door. But I think there's a nuance here that is really important when he talked about the ability to hold hope and brutal facts in equal weight. What if we would hold the honesty of our fears in equal weight with the courage of our dreams? And I want to walk through a quick illustration of what it looks like, I think, when we get this wrong. When we are really good with the hey, I'm going to face the brutal facts. I am going to confront the fears of today. Experience starts to temper us and we turn into pessimists. I have such a strong connection to where things actually are today. I begin losing sight of the ability to dream. Option number 2, this was me. I both do not have the courage to look at what's actually going wrong, and I do not have the ability to handle the failure of not accomplishing my dream, so I am going to execute my day. And when I do all my tasks and I do all my meetings, that will be a good day. That makes me a good person. That makes me productive. That means I must be successful. And the third one is, and you know these people in your life too, they are so connected to a future that may or may not come true, that is so disconnected from the reality of today, that it's like this fanciful dream. The ultimate in vulnerability is saying, I'm going to open the door. I'm going to accept the monster exactly as it is today, and I'm going to stare right in its eyes, and I'm going to take ownership of it, and I'm going to figure out what to do. And I'm also, in spite of all of the things going wrong, have total hope that we're going to fix it and have the courage to dream. That's the beauty of EOS. It's bananas. There are tools to deal with today's issues and to dream for tomorrow. But this is the ultimate in vulnerability that I think for us as leaders is a very scary proposition. I have to keep moving. Okay. Okay, quick try it. Where you start a conversation is the ceiling of vulnerability. Where you start a conversation is the ceiling of vulnerability. Quick example. Earlier this year, if you would have asked me how I was doing, I would say things are good. But we are struggling with a new thing in our family. We have one of our daughters is struggling with some anxiety, and I'm really figuring out how to navigate this for the first time as a parent. And do you know how quickly people rushed in with resources, people to call, books to read, blog posts, podcasts? And the speed at which I was able to fill the gap for my daughter was accelerated because of my ability to be vulnerable, willingness to be vulnerable in that moment. Can we please all agree over the next day and a half, as you have 2,000 people who have an assortment of resources and life experiences, that we are not going to say, I'm busy and I'm good. Because everybody's busy and nobody cares that you are. And if you are only good, you are not paying attention to what's going on in your life. Okay. The second one, decisions. I have done quite a few calls with people saying, kind of like going on this EOS journey. And they sound one of these two ways. Well, usually they'll be like, hey, Tiffany, I just want to reach out. Somebody said that you're having a lot of success at the EOS. I wanted to learn more about that. And the first question I ask is, tell me how we got here. Like, I want to know how we got on this phone call together. And it sounds one of two ways. It sounds like, well, I've read a lot about it, and I've heard about it, and I've talked to some people, and I think we really want to go on this journey. I'm excited about it. Not everybody in my organization is, so I'm just calling you to kind of get some tips. Okay? Also, sometimes it sounds like this. We're definitely doing this. I know it's going to fix us. I already have a plan. Just connecting with you to see if there's any best practices to help me finish and refine what it is that we're going to do already. Which horse would you bet on? We don't understand the impact of our decisions. Our organizations are a direct reflection of the decisions we have or have not made. We wish, we want to, we hope to, we kind of, we think about it, we did, but we didn't. We don't make decisions. Or in my case, I made too many decisions and didn't give the organization time to actually implement. One of the things I think we massively underestimate in decisions is the change management required after the decision. In the work that we do at Element 3, we're a marketing consultancy, and we're working almost always with companies that are at an inflection point of change and growth. Acquisition, divestiture, new product launch, new market entry. There's like a business case that needs to be made sense of to people, the marketplace, the brand. And then there's the people that actually have to go on the journey. So we do an enormous amount of change management in the course of our work. And I started to see this pattern emerging. The decisions create change. Change always makes people uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people act out of fear. I want to quickly play out for you what it sounded like at Element 3 when I decided that we were going to go all in on EOS. I said to my leadership team, I need you to understand that element 3 as it exists today no longer can perpetuate into the future. We are functionally out of business. I didn't know when that would be, but I knew all the lines were not at a place where they were going to go in the right direction. If we knew what to do, we would already be doing it. No new idea that anybody's going to raise their hand with to say suddenly this is going to be what fixes it is going to be the thing that we do. We are going to do EOS, we are going to use an implementer, and we are going to, at the end of this, be Justin Moss' best client. We're going to do it. Now, we can talk about where we start, how long it takes, all that kind of stuff, but we are going to do it, and we are going to be excellent at it. That there is no discussion about. That was my decision. Our job is to lead people through the uncertainty of that, and I'm going to give you a quick tool here. People will say, after you share information with them, I don't understand it. And what I've actually learned, if you listen closely, is it's not that they don't understand it. It's really that they don't like it. But they don't have the courage to say that, or maybe sometimes the ability to discern it. So I want to give you this model. I'm telling you, this is very simple and very helpful. We had a situation, we use this every time we roll out change, but we had a particularly bumpy spot in the agency where we had 2 layoffs in 2 years. That's a bad day. Bad day for a culture, bad day for a leadership team, bad day for the people who are there. It's a bad day. And we had to get people's heads back in the game, and I knew that I had to rebuild trust with them. And you know what rebuilds trust? Truth. And so I laid out for them in small groups. I said, hey, we're all going to put our participant hats on the sidelines right now. We're going to pretend like we're in a Harvard business class together, and this is a business case that we're looking at as objectively as we can. And the goal in the first part of this conversation is to say, do you understand it? We had whiteboards, and here's the numbers, and here's the facts, and here's how this came together. This was the decision criteria, and here's what we did. Do you understand it? What questions do you have about understanding? Okay, do we understand it? All right, let's put our participant hats back on. If you were a leader in that same situation, given the same set of circumstances and the same data, would you have made the same or similar decision? Do you agree with the decision? In the example of my layoffs, I was like, look, that's a really crappy day. I don't ever want to do that. But it was the right choice. And I needed to see individually, each one of them. I wasn't going to convince them it was the right choice. If you, in the same situation, were given the same set of facts and circumstances, would you have made the same choice? And then the last one is, do you like it? And it allows you to connect with your people as a human being to say, look, it is my job to understand the facts the most. It is my job to make right decisions even when they're hard. And I'm a person and I hated it. Do you understand it? Do you agree with it? And do you like it? And the other thing I tell my team is, if you see 4, 5, 6, 7 decisions go by where you just don't agree with what we're doing, we may not be the leadership team you should be fighting for. And that's okay. But let's not pretend like we don't understand it. Okay. Of these 3 things, vulnerability, decisions, and discipline, there will be one of these that will be harder for you. This one is the hardest for me. I am not naturally disciplined. I would like to give you an example. In the early stages of my marriage, I was like, I don't know, I'm out of shape or something. I wanted to run a half marathon. And so I told my husband, I'm going to run a half marathon. He said, that sounds great. So I went to the internet, bought the ticket, printed off Hal Higdon's, half marathon training, and put it on the fridge because I'm a paper kind of girl. And 3-4 weeks went by, and we had some friends over for dinner, and they're like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? What are you working on? I said, work, blah, blah. And I'm training for a half marathon. And my husband says, you are not. And I was like, oh, what do you mean I'm not? He's like, you are not training for a half marathon. I was like, I am. He's like, you have not run at all. And it's true. I had maybe run one. True. I wish I would have known how funny. I had checked off the rest days. I'm not kidding. So I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It's very embarrassing. It's true. It's embarrassing. I had the intention of training for a half marathon. I had thought about training for a half marathon. I had done all the things to prepare for a half marathon, but I had not run. You're laughing at me. At least I know it. I have power because I know it. There are things in your life that you have talked about, that you have wished for, that you have planned for, and you have thought about so long, you have convinced yourself you are doing it. And you're not. I think that's part of the reason people get so pissed off at EOS is because there's a lot of accountability in it. EOS tools are not enough to create a culture of discipline. You have to build a culture of discipline. I am not disciplined. Guess what? When I was the head of everything in the world and the planet and all is good in humanity in Element 3, we had a very undisciplined culture. That's a separate presentation that is probably not mine to give about how to create a culture of discipline, but I'll tell you 2 things I did that were huge. One was put a disciplined person in charge. I'm serious. They don't let me take rocks or anything anymore. We all need to know ourselves. And hire people who are disciplined. One example I have, a guy who runs our marketing, he's like, I'm a runner. My head of talent asked him, what do you do when it rains? He said, I run. He's disciplined. It's in him. If you want a disciplined culture, you have to have people who are naturally disciplined. I work very hard at being disciplined, but it is not naturally who I am. Quickly. It's all hard. Everything is hard. Staying married, hard. Getting divorced, hard. Having kids, hard. Not having kids, hard. Forgiving people, hard. Hanging on to bitterness, hard. Getting out of bed in the morning at 5 a.m. to work out, hard. Feeling really uncomfortable in your skin all day long, hard. I'm serious. You've got to pick the things that align with the outcomes that you want in your life, and it is an illusion to believe the things you are behaving, like not training, are benefiting you. You're just delaying all the stuff you actually want in your life. Quick try-its, and then we got to rock and roll through my examples. Find your minimums and set public tracks. So my achiever self is like, I'm sorry I use the example of like working out so much. I just think it's so practical and gets everybody, like you can imagine it. I had a baby at 40, not planned. In the middle of COVID, not planned. My husband and I are both senior executives running companies, through a crisis, and we had 3 kids at home in school, and all of our care collapsed. It was a mess in our house. I come out of COVID, I'd had this baby, and I physically had never felt older or weaker or less a sense of myself. And I wanted to lose 50 pounds by Thursday. I'm an achiever, I can do it. And I was holding myself accountable to all of these idealistic plans and feeling this cycle of failure over and over and over again because I had sold a minute at least 4 times every time I tried to plan my day. And I was introduced to this concept of find your minimums. What is the minimum thing that you will do no matter what is happening in your life? You will make this happen and hold yourself accountable to that and set your scorecard and do that. And then you can plus it. So I committed to working out twice a week for 45 minutes for 50 weeks. And that was what I was going to do for 50 weeks. And I was never going to revisit it. And no matter what happened, I knew I could do 2 days. It didn't matter if my husband was in town, he wasn't in town. It didn't matter if somebody had puked on me the night before. It didn't matter. I could do that. And set public traps. Hire a trainer. Publish your scorecard. Tell your friend. Call a mentor that a lot about and make it public. I publish it because I care a lot about my ability to achieve. And when I can know somebody else is looking at the scoreboard too, I'm much more likely to actually do the thing. Okay. We're going to take this formula of courageous vulnerability, confident decisions, the ability to humbly create new disciplines. And I'm going to show you what this looked like in my career, in my relationships with myself. Okay, career. Here's the door. Patron saint Jim Collins here. This is his model, 5 stages of decline. This is not my model. This is Jim Collins' model. But I want you to see, did you know that the first 2 stages of failure look like success? So if you put your hand over the right side of that and look at the first 2 stages, they're up and to the right. If that was the only part of the pro forma that you saw, you'd be like, I would definitely make an investment in that company. We basically launched a nuclear bomb and hit the enemy at Element 3, like in the marketplace. And I was like, oh my word, we totally know what we're doing. Let's launch more nuclear bombs. And this undisciplined pursuit of more became who we were because we had no idea how or what caused the initial success. This is what our revenue looked like from 2010 to 2018. Much like that graph up and to the right. If I had not had the courage to vulnerably open the door and look at the monster on the other side of it in 2018, for certain, there is no question in my mind, the dotted line would have been what happened to our agency. But because of the courage to be vulnerable, the willingness to make different decisions, and to commit like our life depended on it to new disciplines, this is what has happened to the business. Now, we are right back. We'll exceed it in 2023, but in 2022, we're back to where we started. We backed up. We had to retrench. We had to rebuild the plumbing of the agency. 2018 is when we said yes to EOS. Now, not all growth are the first 2 stages of failure. I'm not saying that's the case, but if you're unsure or you're in a rocket ship up and to the right, go read about this. Had I would have been even more scared of what was coming for us. But don't mistake all growth for good growth. Okay, were you making any money, Tiffany? Thanks for asking. Not really. You see the middle here is the industry average. We had tried so hard to get to average. And I went average absolutely nowhere in my vicinity of my life. I want to be excellent. In 2018, when we started EOS, we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to become more profitable. And so we became a little bit more profitable. In 2019, Justin Moss at our offsite asked us as a leadership team, when are you going to take this profitability thing seriously? When are you going to decide that you're going to be profitable? And in that offsite, we took the to-do that the rock that we were going to hit our profit target in 90 days. Do you hear the difference in that? The first decision was we are going to become more profitable, which we did. The second decision was we are going to hit our profitability target in 90 days. The quality of your decisions matters a lot. Thankfully, we made that decision. We made some big cuts in 2020. COVID was coming for us. We had no idea that was going to happen 90 days later. And our ability to play offense through one of the hardest things that I've led through completely changed the game for us. Our competitive advantage, our ability to engage our people, our ability to take some financial risk, not knowing all the PPP stuff was going to come to bear. We have to be able to play offense as leaders. And when we don't make hard decisions to make profit an imperative, we give away pieces of the toolbox. And this is what's happened to the business since then. We've continued to exceed it, and this is excellent. Okay, thank you. It's not really me, it's my team. I'm the best at spending money. Okay, relationships. They're somewhere being like, it's true. Okay. This is Tiffany's actual graphic of her marriage. I'm going to walk you through some data points. I strongly believe change creates big inflection points in relationships, and it kind of shows you where you're at. So let me show you our change. This is when we got married. My husband and I got married in 2005. Things were so great. Life was going to be amazing. 2009, we had kid number 1. We were both early in our careers navigating the 08-09 financial crisis. I was scared to death. We had this new baby, and we struggled to navigate all that change really well. We had kid number 2. Went slightly better. We kind of knew the toolbox a little bit more. Our careers were beginning to pick up. There was a little bit more financial certainty in our lives. And then we had kid number 3, and we were so individually consumed with our careers and the opportunities in front of us and the people that were individually applauding us on our journeys that we were not coming back together very often. We'd come back to parent, we'd come back to go to church, we'd come back together to go to family events. But more often than not, we were tagging in and out. My husband started a new job in 2017-ish. And that sounds like, hey, babe, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to be gone more. I've got a new industry to learn. I've got new coworkers. I've got customers to meet. So the amount of time that we were spending together became even less, and we were underwater. In 2018, we had a conversation that sounded something like this. When I was a little girl and I laid in bed at night and I imagined what it was going to feel like to be married and have a family, we're not even close to that, babe. I didn't think I'd cry. I didn't think I'd be afraid. I didn't think we'd hurt each other. I didn't think it was going to feel like this. We're not a team. We're not rowing in the same direction. We hardly know anything about each other anymore. I don't even miss you when you're gone. Is this what you wanted? Is this what you pictured? We strive for excellence in every area of our life. And this marriage is starving. I'll go first. I'll be vulnerable. How about you, babe? Is this what you wanted? Is this what you wanted? Is this what you dreamed of? Is this what you thought it would feel like? Are we putting our best into this? Is this all we've got? Really? So we made the decision to go to marriage counseling, not the 1 hour a week kind, but the spend thousands of dollars and go somewhere for 5 days kind. And we knew we were going to exit that experience either with new disciplines to rebuild this marriage, or it was going to be over. We knew that. We made the choice to stay together. We made the choice to do the hard work. He had another job change, and I'm here to tell you our marriage is better than ever, and we had another kid. So we're just proving it all to you. He would be so glad for you to know. But it was because we were willing to be vulnerable. It's because we made a different decision, and it's because we had the humility to come back and create new behaviors. It is awkward as a grown-up to try new words on. EOS is the same. There's this whole language you have to learn. It's uncomfortable to be what's it called? That thing. Or we're fighting. What am I supposed to say? I hear you. Inside you're I want to murder you. But that's not what I'm supposed to say anymore. It takes humility to learn. This is a little thing I file in my head, that the people you are making excuses to are the relationships you are sacrificing. Sorry, babe, I know I said I'd be home at 6 o'clock. I'm sorry, it's 7:10. I had a call, I had a proposal, I had somebody come. I'm sorry, I couldn't make that commitment. I meant to, wanted to, just didn't. I've heard it said that whether we intentionally or unintentionally hurt someone, it hurts the same. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I know, but it hurts the same. And when we're giving people excuses, we're unintentionally hurting them, but it hurts the same. And it erodes relationship, and it erodes respect, and it erodes trust. I know some of you aren't married and all that doesn't totally apply, but I also want to speak to friendships very quickly. I went through the hardest season of my life, and my friends knew very little of it. After it was all done, I was like, hey guys, I've been going through some stuff. And they're like, Tiff, why didn't you tell us? I was like, I don't know. I don't think I knew how. Like, we wanted to love you. We wanted to be there for you. We wanted to watch your kids for you. We wanted to be there. And it was a moment where I realized I don't even really know how to be a good friend. But vulnerability and decisions and new disciplines are relevant in friendships too. If you look at your friends and you realize they don't actually know much more about you than the people at work, they're not your friends. Like friends. Like people who you live life with, friends. Okay, last one. It was 2021. We had fixed the business. My husband and I had fixed our marriage. And we were sitting in our offsite, and my team turned to me and they said, "What do you want, Tiff? What do you want?" I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What do I want?" They're like, what do you want from the business?" And like literally instantly, I was so insecure because I had no idea what to say, and so I said what every good EOS client says: "Let me take it as a rock." So I took it as a rock. Maybe it was my last rock ever. I don't know. And I said, I don't know, let's take it as a rock. And I started reflecting on, why do I hate this question so much? Isn't the purpose of EOS to help business owners get what they want out of their business? Well, the first thing I'd wanted was for things to be fixed, for things not to hurt so bad. And once we were on even ground, I was like, this is all I'd ever dared hope for. Just this. I just don't want the boat to rock. I don't need the boat bigger. I don't need different chairs in the boat. I don't need a different outfit in the boat. I just need the boat not to rock. And they said, "No, what do you want? What do you want? We want to know, what do you want?" And I started to remember. When I started this, I was 25 years old when I started Element 3, when I became the president of Element 3. And I remember thinking, making the conscious decision, when my kids are young, I want to work my face off. And when they get to middle school, when the heart taking is at an all-time high, I want to be present. I want to be home after school. And I was so nervous to tell them that I want to be home at 3 o'clock when my kids get off the bus. That's what I want. That's the first thing I want. Because I didn't want them to say, like, oh, here she is, part-timer. She's not really in it anymore. Like, she's told, like, okay. I didn't want them to, like, think I didn't care as much, that I wasn't in it as much, that I couldn't be as good and contribute as high and still be challenged and grow. I just wanted to be home at 3 o'clock. And the response was, yeah, Tiff, let's figure out how to do that. I was like, what do you mean let's figure out how to do that? The risk in even saying out loud, I want to be home at 3 o'clock, made me vulnerable to the idea of what if it didn't come true? Because if I don't want it and I don't get it, then I can pretend like I don't want it. If I don't say I want it and I don't get it, then I can pretend like I don't want it. But if I say I want it and I don't get it, I can't pretend like I didn't want it. We lose our ability to dream, and we lose our desire to want more because we're just so afraid of what if we can't make it happen. I'm telling you, this journey of EOS, this journey of understanding the power of vulnerability, of decisions, and of discipline has made it where I got to the end and I said, I am in a spot of the road. I've not seen this before. I get to lay new pavement. I get to dream about where my life goes from here. What's it going to feel like to be a mom to teenagers? What's it look like to be present for them? My husband has a job. He travels all the time. What's it look like for me to make home in that environment? And how do I continue to grow professionally and push my team and build leaders and build culture and share what life has taught me? What does that look like? This is a picture of my family. It makes me cry when I see it. Because we are together. We fought very hard for this picture, and I have learned that I think together is the hardest thing to achieve as an adult. Not just in our marriages and relationships, in our businesses, in our cultures, to be together. Things are naturally in a state of disarray. Things are naturally in a state of disorder. Things are naturally in a state of decline. And it takes leadership to push back in a positive direction. It takes leadership to help people see who they're supposed to be. It takes leadership to build families and marriages and friendships. I used to believe the best thing I could give my organization was to selflessly serve them. And I did that for a long time at the expense of my own understanding of who I am, what was put on this earth, and the gifts that I have to give it. I have since learned in the last couple of years that knowing what you want and who you are the most generous questions that you can answer. I have a question for you. Would you follow someone that doesn't know who they are and never gets what they want? We're asking our people to do that if we aren't leading that way, right? They're all coming to us saying like, can you help me understand who I am? Can you help me understand if my goals are achievable? Can you help me understand if I can experience this in life? Can you help me understand if I can afford to take my family to Europe? Can you help me understand if I can do that? Their ability to get that in your environment will be perpetuated if they see that you are doing that. I don't know if this is causation or correlation, but we're going to go with it because I'm presenting to you. The first orange dot is 2018. We've anchored through this presentation, and that's kind of like D-Day for me. 2021, the second orange dot, was when I started my journey of understanding what do I want and who am I all over again. Look what happened to our Net Promoter Score across our employees. If you're unfamiliar with that score, go take a look at it. We reached an all-time high. Our purposes, our visions, our understanding of who we are is directly correlated to our company's ability to understand what it is for and what it is about. As I got clear in my own life, we got more clear as a culture, and I don't think that's accidental. It takes a lot of courage to open the door, but we are built for this. We are built for hard. These moments, these days that I talk about have become some of the things I most cherish because I remember what happens if I don't do what I know now. So what's at stake? Your gap. Do you want it? That person that I told you about at the beginning that said, Tiffany, I can't be part of this anymore, he today is the president of Element 3. I told you I'm married to the same man. I have the same leadership team that we started EOS with. And I have a better understanding of who I am. If you will lean into vulnerability, to new decisions, and the humility to create new behaviors, you will fill your gap. I'm living proof. Thank you.
Can
I do this slide quick and then give it back to you? Thank you very much. There's something very sweet about being able to do this in the city that this company was built in and my story was written in. So thank you for that. Sorry. There was a section that I created for this presentation that did not make it from a time perspective. I've created recorded a podcast called Six Beliefs I Got Wrong. It dropped today if you want to go check that out on Scare Confident. And then if there's questions or feedback that you have, the other QR code is for that. So thank you all, and thank you, EOS, for having me. Thanks.